Nine, eight, seven, six, five, four, three, two, one, zero.
Good night, colleagues, and welcome to Thoughtful Thursday. Tonight, we are broadcasting the final session from the Bahamas, direct from the shores of New Providence, on the grounds of the Old Bahamas Teachers College, just outside of the capital city of Nassau. Now, Nassau no longer looks like this 1930s picture behind me, but if you watch closely throughout the program, you will see change take place right before your eyes. But we have an exciting program planned for you this evening, and we will be talking how we engineer the future here in the present, or as our program suggests, succession planning in the workplace, preparing others to lead. We are so delighted to see you. From Grand Bahama in the Northwest to Trinidad and Tobago in the Southeast, this promises to be a very exciting and thought-provoking evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ishmael Smith, and I am an educator of 23 years. This evening is a double first for me. Not only is this my first time hosting Thoughtful Thursdays, but I'm also winding down my first year as a grade 8 secondary principal, serving at the T.A. Thompson Junior High School on the island of New Providence, where excellence is our commission. At T.A. Thompson, we pride ourselves on being an excellent school, producing excellent students, where excellence looks like doing the correct thing the first time and every time. And now let's welcome a good friend of mine and the principal of C.C. Sweeting Senior High, T.A. Thompson Sister School just across the road, the most excellent Vanessa Rowe.
Well, this is truly a night of excellence as I stand in modern day Nassau. Good night, fellow educators. I am Vanessa Rowe, mentor and inspirational leader in the educational system for almost 25 years. I'm the proud principal of C.C. Sweeting Senior High School, otherwise known as King Cobra Nation, where the cobra is our mascot, and every day, in every way, we are striking for excellence. We are so delighted to have this opportunity to share with our Caribbean brothers and sisters on the topic, succession planning in the workplace, preparing others to lead. To get started, we will begin with a time of sharing in the breakout rooms, where we will tackle the comment, it is important to prepare others to lead. Join in and share one thought about how you too can prepare members of your team to lead. See you in the breakout room.
I don't know what happened. I don't know if you heard me or not.
No, I didn't. I'm not sure if we're back in session yet.
Yep, we're back in session now, so we can continue.
Okay, thank you, Raj. Thank you all. Welcome back, everybody. And this time, I'm coming to you from 1920s Bay Street in the background behind me. Vanessa, I am reporting that the breakout session I participated in was indeed excellent in all ways. We had an exciting mix of countries with some interesting ways of both identifying potential leaders and strategies on how to assist them in learning the skills that are necessary to successfully serve at leadership levels in the school. We had Lavon from Tobago, who spoke about delegating responsibility and giving persons an opportunity and a chance to serve. We had Bonnie, who spoke about establishing purpose and identifying the challenges like in functional school, distance learning. And Kimberly, who spoke about, reiterated that thought of giving everybody an opportunity and helping them to develop the skills or identifying the skills in them, such as communication, initiative, and being a team player, because she feels that she ought to prepare everybody for her job. What about you? How was your breakout session?
Well, I too had a thought-provoking breakout session. Members of my group spoke about leading from behind. Interesting concept. They talked about giving others the opportunity to lead. They talked about working together, mentoring and coaching, and honing those skills that are very important in succession planning. As we view this background of modern day Bay Street, New Providence, Bahamas, I think we can agree that strategic planning for future development is essential if we are to forecast the future. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Rita Celestine Cardi with the principal's thought. Ms. Celestine Cardi is the principal of the only secondary school in the island of Anguilla, Albania Lake Lodge Comprehensive School. We can therefore confer on her the honorary title of President of the Anguilla Secondary School Association, so knighted. As well as being a respected educator, Mrs. Celestine Cardi has been described as a fine poet and a sharp and searching literary critic. She is a valued contributor to Thursday, which we focus on it being thoughtful, and to CAPS. Colleagues, the presidential thought.
Good evening, all. For these presidential thoughts, we will focus on how we as principals can prepare others to lead. Leadership can be defined as those activities tied to the core work of an organization that are designed to influence the motivation, knowledge, affect, or practices of other organizational members. That is certainly demanding in a school environment. As we seek to prepare others to lead, it would then be wise to adopt the philosophy of distributed leadership in the sense of shared leadership. The management structure of most schools, where there are senior leaders and middle managers, lends itself naturally to this. Further, classroom teachers are the leaders of their classes, and the students in those classes must become increasingly competent leaders of themselves and drivers of their own development. There is clearly a leadership role for everyone, and of this they must be aware. Keeping this awareness in the foreground is a good way to prepare others to lead over the long term. In the medium term, however, in our monitoring and evaluation as leaders, we can also find opportunities to leverage the skill sets of our team members. They are certainly talented. Their various talents can be used to strengthen the work of the team and afford them the opportunity to hone their talents by putting them to use. At the same time, we can note weaknesses and opportunities for growth. Where these are noted, we must consider ways of addressing them so that individuals and groups can move forward and make greater contributions to the aims of the school. This is not as easy as leveraging already existing skill sets, but just as important. Now we come to professional development, which must be scheduled and implemented each year. It is important that the professional development offered addresses both individual as well as organizational needs. Professional development is also more effective and more easily transferred to daily action when it is relevant and embedded in practice. As per the OECS professional development model, professional development can take a variety of forms, including being teacher-led. It can also take place anytime and anywhere. The CARICOM standards for educators, including emerging school leaders, must also be shared with all, enabling them to carve their own path to increasing leadership capacity. The CARICOM standards are organized under the headings of cognitive head, behavioral heart, and performance hand, with well-being as an additional focal point. Further, as we are continuously reminded, the opportunity for all members of staff to participate in decision-making empowers them to develop their leadership potential. Of course, this process is not without its drawbacks and potential pitfalls. Organizational models for improvement are anything but linear and predictable. However, we accept that without the taking of risks, there can be no growth. Grow we must. So it is therefore wonderful to be able to say that in preparing others to lead, we as principals of the region can simply share Thoughtful Thursday and the upcoming CAPS Conference 2021 with current middle managers and budding and potential leaders in our school environment so that they, like us, can use this space and that grand event for motivation, inspiration, professional growth, and development.
Thank you, Ms. Carty. I'm not sure if we can see me, but I'm pretty sure that we can hear me. Good. Well, we're back. And in case you're wondering, you won't be able to see the picture right now until we get it on the screen, but I am now reporting back from in the 20s, sitting in front of the market downtown on Bay Street, Nassau, Bahamas. It's here back then that people came to buy and sell goods, but most importantly, to share sip, gossip, and important information. Ms. Carty, thank you for that presentation. That information was definitely not sip or gossip, but very important information about distributed leadership, relevant and embedded practice, and showing the skills and emotive qualities and the things necessary for supporting staff and students alike. At this
As
time,
we take in the sights and the sounds of the modern day straw market, it's that time. That's what time it is. Time to move our bodies. Are you ready? Our marvelous moment of movement comes to you tonight from The Current, a small town in northern Eleuthera, Bahamas. Felicia Roll, another Roll, is a language arts teacher at Spanish Wells All-Age School, and she will lead us in tonight's exercise. Yes, we like to keep it moving. This is one for the body, the mind, and the soul. Are you ready? Get ready. It's yoga time.
Okay, so make sure that your feet is grounded to the earth. Make sure that your spine is aligned, head over heart, heart over pelvis. And once you're good, we're going to take a nice deep breath in, put our hands up to the air, extend them as far as we can. And then on an exhale, we will bring it down nice and calmly, relax to a forward fold bend. You're going to inhale for a halfway lift, and then you're going to exhale and bring it back down. And it's okay if you can't do the whole bend. We're just starting out. It's cool. Inhale into a high plank, and then we're going to exhale and bring our bodies down with control all the way down, and then go into a upward down dog in our inhale, feeling that nice stretch in our spine. Exhale, bring our bodies back up, curl our toes, and we're going to push our hips back to go into a downward dog stretch. Now, normally you do this for 5 full breaths. So that's inhale and exhale for 5 full breaths. And once that is done, we're going to bring our feet slowly, however we want to, or we can jump to the top, but bring it slowly to the front. Give ourselves one more nice little stretch. Inhale, extend our hands back into the air, and we're going to go back into our standing pose or Tadasana. So once we're nice in this pose, we're going to bring our right foot back into a nice wide stride, and we are going to pivot it and stretch our hands or extend our hands to our side, shoulder length apart. Make sure that our knee is over our foot. Inhale, bring it up. Exhale, bring it down. And you're going to send your left foot back. Bring it back down for a nice low lunge. Inhale, cobra pose or upward facing dog. Exhale, go into our downward facing dog. And so now we're going to put our right foot forward. Again, a nice extended lunge or wide lunge. And we're going to do it on the opposite side. Make sure that your body is not going too forward, that you're nice and centered, keeping our spine nice and aligned. Inhale, bring our arms up. Exhale, we're going to bring it down, and we're going to bring our foot forward. Give ourselves a nice bend. Inhale, exhale, downward bend, halfway bend. And then we're going to get our knees into a tabletop position, spine aligned. Inhale, you're going to curl your body up, nice arch as a cat. Exhale, you're going to bring it down as a cow, and you're going to bring it to that for about 3 breaths. You want to make sure when you're inhaling that you're pushing your back, your neck, and your hips out. And when you are inhaling, you're exhaling, pushing it out. And when you're exhaling, you're bringing and curving your body in as much as possible. Then give your knees some space, spread them out outside of your mat, and you're going to end in a child's pose or an extended child's pose. So extend your arms, make sure that your knees are a bit wider, of course, than your hips or a little outside your mat. And you can just give a nice full breath and put your hands together, and we will end in this nice, comfortable resting position.
Caribbean Association of Principals of Secondary Schools is breaking barriers and going beyond the norm, July 26th to 31st. We invite you to be a part of this pioneering virtual conference, guaranteed to renew your commitment as administrators of excellence through the sharing of ideas in innovation and technology. The ultimate Caribbean unifying experience. CAP's virtual conference, July 2021, creating opportunities to collaborate, define our future, and transition beyond the norm. Be a part of the journey.
CAP's Virtual Conference 2021, Blazing the Trail.
Talk about a different take on movement. Well, Felicia, I have stretched and stretched and stretched so much so that I am now 375 miles southeast of New Providence and sitting in front of, hosting from in front of the first school building on Inagua, Great Inagua, Matthew Town, Great Inagua, built in the early 1900s. Ladies and gentlemen, I think now that I'm here down in Inagua and I've stretched, I think my co-host has someone on deck back there in New Providence who knows a little bit about succession planning and all that it entails, and is looking forward to presenting succession from a jurisdictional perspective that covers 600 nautical miles, 700 rocks and keys. Principal Rowe, why don't you tell us something about tonight's speaker?
You are so right, Mr. Smith. Our speaker is not one for long introductions. Mr. Marcellus Taylor is an educational planner and policy analyst who currently serves as Director of Education. He has served in many areas in the educational field as teacher, school administrator, educational officer, and deputy director before assuming his position as director in January of 2018. In recent years, Director Taylor has spearheaded several initiatives. Too many to mention, but most noteworthy is the Shared Vision for Education 2030, a plan that contains contributions of all the political parties in the Bahamas and the regularization of the homeschooling sector in the country. Fellow colleagues, without further ado, tonight's presenter, Dr. Marcellus Taylor.
Good evening to everyone, and thank you very much for your both your introduction and also your invitation. And I had a session on Tuesday with Ms. Roma and another colleague, and they told me that this thing is a time sequence event. And so far, you've been hitting the timelines just as you laid them out. And so I'll do my best to deal with such a massive topic in the 20 minutes that I've been allocated. And I'll seek to present for about 12 minutes or so, and then have opportunities for question and answer. This thing of succession planning is something that we talk about quite a bit. We certainly talk about it a lot in the Bahamas, and truth be told, we are at a point right now in our education system over the last 5 to 10 years where we've had a lot of retirements and a lot of people moving on. And so it has created, in some instances, quite a number of pockets of voids that have to be filled. And it has made even more clear the importance of succession planning, not just replacement planning, not just determining how you would just take a person and put them in a spot, but how you will successfully prepare them to succeed the person who was in that spot, and to build on what was there and what is there, so that the organization and the individuals within that organization will continue to grow. And if anyone cares about an organization, and if anyone spends their time in an organization, certainly they want to know that that organization is not only strong, but is left in the capable hands of those who can take it from strength to strength. And so we are talking about succession planning. And I make the point here that succession planning can be successful, but it requires us to put the right stuff there. And putting the right stuff there is what we're going to talk about today, because we have to ensure that we have the right ingredients necessary to make succession planning work. You'll see this graphic here, which is someone's conceptualization of what succession planning is all about. And when I reviewed it, it's one that I think that I could adopt. At the core of succession planning is the notion of, one, having clear programmatic goals, that we know what this organization that we belong to is supposed to do. We understand what our mission is. We understand the finish line that we're trying to cross. But in addition to that, And that is important because that is what gives us the focus. That is what determines what our work will be about. In addition to that, we have leaders and we have those who are subordinate to the leader. And both groups, the leader or the leaders and the employees, must have commitment. The leader being committed to building the organization, not just the programs, but also the people therein, and also the employees being committed to carrying out the work of that organization, but also on a personal level, being committed to learning, submitting themselves to processes of development that come about, whether it be through professional development activities, whether it be through deliberate mentoring or coaching, or whether it just be through the process of executing their daily tasks, being committed to learn. Also, you will see on the periphery kind of cycle of the various stages that we go through or should go through if we're determining to ensure that succession planning is successful. So of course, you will make workforce decisions around the people you would need and the work that they have to do, and then you will assess gaps. And once you assess gaps, you will look into your talent pool to try to select those people who can best fit those gaps, fill those gaps. And then along the way, you'll develop and execute succession strategies, which might be any number of things, in addition to professional development, giving people responsibilities, chairing committees, et cetera, and then also reviewing that process so that, again, you can assess where you are as an entity in terms of meeting your goals in succession planning. One of the things that we need is the right organization. The right organization, meaning that whatever organization we have, it has a structure. And we have to ensure that that structure best reflects the work of the organization, but also that it's designed in such a way that it permits for persons to be in spots where they can be successful, but also so that they can contribute to the growth of the organization while themselves being able to provide the various services and activities that are needed. And in most organizations, and in big organizations like the ones we're involved with here in the education sector in the Bahamas, and I'm sure it's true in many of the other countries, we have to look at the hierarchy that we have, and we should look at the hierarchy in two ways. We should look at the hierarchy for those persons who are on the same level, those persons who are in a lateral dispensation. How is it that they work together? What are the discrete activities that they do? How do they support one another? And how are agents cross-trained so that they can know more and more of the work at the level that they find themselves? But also, what kind of hierarchy we have and what kind of progression or upward mobility individuals have within an organization, and how those roles that they play change. And if the roles are changing with any significance, what are the new skills? What are the different skills that persons must acquire in order to successfully serve in those roles? Of course, we all know this saying that, you know, a person could be a wonderful teacher or an excellent teacher, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they will be a very good school administrator. Why? Because the jobs are different. Yes, they're all in a school setting, but the day-to-day activities, tasks that a school administrator would do would be in so many ways different from what a classroom teacher would do. And while you may have gotten training as a classroom teacher 3-4 years in an academic program to become a teacher, many people have not had such training when they move on to the administrative ranks. And so as an organization, we have to think about this. How is it that we prepare people to move through these ranks? What is it that each job description will require? What are the skills that lines up with those points on the job description? And how do we prepare people through that career path in order to acquire the skills needed and to have success as they proceed along their career? We need the right staff or the right people with the right stuff. And if you look at this middle graphic, some people might claim that's unfair. And in public sector entities, things like this are frowned about, picking someone out of the pack. But oftentimes, there are some people who are better suited for certain roles. And while we don't want to be unduly discriminatory in a negative sense, being unfair to people in our discrimination, discrimination is what we do all the time. We say that people cannot join this teaching career if they don't have a teacher certificate. We say that people cannot get a certain job if they don't have a first degree. We say that someone cannot get a role if they don't have X number of years of experience. These are more or less objective measures, but there are also some subjective measures that are also helpful and useful, like people's willingness to engage, like people's the intangibles of an individual. Some people could just get things done. And so recruitment and the kinds of people we select, so that the kind of pool that we have is something that we should see how we could pay attention to, so that we could ensure that the pool from which we are drawing is a rich pool. And then also we have to think about how we deploy persons and how we move them through the system. So promotional systems, what are those like? And what do they require? Is it largely based on a 20-minute interview, or does it involve a more 360 approach where different persons who engage with that employee are able to say, in the day-to-day activities, we notice these things, we see these things, and we say that this person is effective. So selecting persons with the right stuff is an important part of successful succession planning. And also the review of the performance of individuals. We have job performance tools, we have annual performance appraisals. The question that we have to ask ourselves, are these tools really measuring what they purport to measure? From those tools, can we really know the skill set of an individual? And how does that skill set that they have not only reflect in the work that they do, but how does it enable them to transition to other levels? And so I would argue that weak performance appraisal instruments do nothing to aid the process of succession planning. We need stronger devices. We also need an integrity with the use of whatever tool that we have. Because if we take a tool and because we don't do our due diligence, or because of the confrontation with some staff, we just give them the highest level of score, then when we get a performance appraisal with 3/4 of the staff having the highest level of performance, how then are you going to use that to select who is the best? And so we have to ensure that the tools that we use are relevant, but also that those of us who administer them with the integrity required, that what we put on the paper is reflective of the work and the capabilities and the attitudes and the values of that particular person who we are supervising. And also, my last point would be, we need the right relationships. You can't expect that the mentoring or the development of someone and the preparation of someone for succession is only the job of the supervisor. Certainly, it has to be interplay and an interchange. So the mentor and the mentee relationship is one that we would like to encourage and ought to encourage, where the mentor is prepared to share and the mentee is willing to learn, where the mentor is creating opportunities and also the mentee is embracing those opportunities. You have some people who would tell someone, oh, you letting that supervisor give you that extra work? They're only trying to take advantage of you. Well, you could look at it that way. Another person could look at it this way. I am getting exposed to some opportunities to grow as a professional, to learn some new things. And so whenever I get in a position to lead, I would have the requisite skills to lead effectively. And so I would argue that we can be successful with succession planning, but we have to utilize the right stuff. We must ensure that our organizations are designed and structured and operate in a way that promotes succession planning. We have to do our best to not only recruit the right staff, but nurture the staff in the way that they ought to be nurtured so that they could acquire the skills and the know-how to do the jobs that they are called to do, and also prepare them for any future roles. We must also ensure that the way in which we monitor them and we assess them is relevant, and also that we do it with integrity so that what we measure reflects what the reality is. And also, we have to have the right kinds of relationships that foster sharing, relationships that foster trust, and then relationships that lead to capacity building. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it was my pleasure to share with you. There are so many more things that could be said, but I think this is the kind of overview that I would like to provide for you. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor, for your presentation. It has certainly helped us to see that a fixed focus on a point in the future expands our visions and actions of today. And that although we act in the now, we must live in tomorrow. We add that part, as the director said, as Mr. Taylor would have said, where we are in the interactive session of the part of the session, where you get to ask your questions and get your answers. Just drop them in the chat box and we will bring them to the fore. And my goodness, you are responding already. Mr. Taylor, we have a first question here. It reads, how do you treat with persons on your team who may have tenure, but not the skill set for a leadership position? For example, a younger person is more qualified. How do you deal with resistance?
Well, for me, I think in terms of requirements, if you're talking about requirements for promotion, I think in static environments such as the one that I'm in, that have these rules and that have these levels of academic requirements, it's a bit easy because those requirements are established regardless of who might be there. I think it's more problematic when you don't have such defined and ingrained criteria for getting a job and promoting. But I think, part of it has to be with the assessment or the performance appraisal of persons. I think too many times in that performance appraisal exercise, from my experience and from what I've seen and my impression of things from what I have seen, it's more of a negotiation process, less a process of an objective assessment of people's ability. And so I think part of what supervisors have to do more is to find ways to highlight the strengths and weaknesses of individuals throughout the course of the year, so that it becomes very clear what a person is capable of doing, what they're not capable of doing. And so by the time you get to the end of the year, it isn't an issue of negotiating. It's an issue of bringing out the evidence that reflects what has happened during the course of the year. And so, I think this will be a struggle, because historically there's this sense that people have that longevity and seniority should equate to direct mobility. And I think as we move in a different type of world over the last 30, 40 years, where merit is becoming something that people are expecting more, then that has created a challenge with more or less the old thinking of seniority equaling advancement.
Okay, all right, thank you. Vanessa, I think I see Lawrence there with his hand or his question. Can you see what he's saying?
Could you read it for me, please?
Sure. What are some of the approaches that can be used to mentor someone who is a mentee but does not want to be mentored but wants to be promoted?
Well, that's why, the slide before the last was talking about the right relationship. I mean, you know, you would want to make yourself available to people, but people are human. And if someone is not giving me the right vibes, I'm reaching out, I'm trying to guide you, I'm trying to support your development, and you at every turn are negative in your approach or are not compliant or show no interest, then just as a human, after a while, I'm going to say, well, that person is not interested, and it's going to be discouraging. I think, though, that sometimes that's youthful discretion, and I think if a person understands that this mentoring is a part of their preparation for advancement, and if you are able to communicate that effectively to them, and also if you're able to adjust your mentoring so that you deal with the areas where you can make a breakthrough a lot easier. And once they see the value of the mentoring, then perhaps you might see a turnaround. But after time, you have to cut your losses. And I'm going to be clear with that. You can't keep wasting time on someone who refuses to accept the mentoring. But you should give them a fair opportunity. And even if they're a little resistant in the beginning, some burden is on you as the mentor to try and find a way to reach them.
Thank you. I think I see another question there, Vanessa. This one's from Shira Carrington. Mr. Taylor, it says, how can we move our governments to examine the societal drivers and value character along with certificate and credit? What can administrators do to lead this change in the balance from down the ladder?
Well, that's a difficult one, in part because when you have a public enterprise, unlike a private enterprise, certainly unlike a family-owned business, you have to be accountable in ways that, others don't have to be. For instance, I'm an Anglican. If all of a sudden everybody in the Ministry of Education everybody who gets hired as an Anglican, that's a problem. That's something that has to be investigated. You cannot use the public sector to advance your personal agenda. And so certificates are kind of neutral devices that enable us to feel at least a certain comfort that people who gain spots have gained it through a fair kind of system. The issue of values and attitudes, trouble with them, we're using them as measures of engagement, is that, these are very subjective. And a lot of time they're very intangible, right? You can't actually touch them, but you could see a person and see how they operate and understand that they have the kind of attitude that you would want, or that they have the moral integrity that you want. I think one of the most important interventions we can make, however, regarding this, is when a person is in our remit and they blatantly violate rules, we should not pass them by. We should not look at them and just say, oh, that's the way that person is, or overlook things. We have to deal with them, document them, and try and deal with them so that there is some kind of recourse for people whose integrity does not meet the smell test. And that's a lot more difficult because that's a more painstaking, slow, bit by bit. But it's perhaps the only way you can really do it.
Ishmael, all good things must come to an end. And as we pause just to take one more question, I would like to remind you, participants, please check the chat box for the evaluation form. We'll take one more burning question for our director. Mr. Taylor, we have many comments in the chat, most persons agreeing with your sentiments and others sharing and giving their contributions.
Well, let maybe pick one of the persons who didn't hold the same view, and then I could respond if that's what you want me to do at this point. Or is it time up? This is not only a thoughtful Thursday, this is a timely Thursday.
Definitely, sir. It is a timely Thursday. And so I just need you to know that we are so grateful that you've taken the time out to share with us tonight. And I believe I speak for everyone when we say that you are a director par excellence. Now,
Thank you very much for the invitation, and it was my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
you're very welcome, sir. Take it away, Ishmael.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, it looks like Junkanoo. It feels like Junkanoo, but it's not December. But it does remind me of one thing. All good things, like you said, must come to an end. Principal Roll, this session truly reminds me of T.A. Thompson. This has been a most excellent session, just like Junkanoo in the background. This has been an excellent session, where it has been filled with excellent contributions from excellent participants, and excellence can be the only outcome because we'll have it no other way. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for participating and sharing. Let's just keep it moving forward, and remember, forward ever, backward never, step by step, block by block, we build tomorrow today.
It has most certainly been our pleasure to serve as your moderators tonight. As we continue to remain safe and adhere to COVID-19 health and safety protocols, please remember to continue to pray for President Curtis Graves and our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Again, Ishmael and I would like to say a big thank you to all of our participants tonight. That includes you. Thank you, Mr. Aaron from Jamaica, and Mr. Raj, and the RSC Tech team. To our NAPS President, Dr. Virginia Roma, and all participants during the month-long Bahamian series, you make us shine every time. Please be sure to make plans to attend our upcoming virtual CAPS conference and continue to share with us every Thursday, same time, same place. Until next time, good night.
We are breaking barriers. Are you transitioning with us?
How? What do we do?
Transitioning to leadership through professional development.
Through the voice of youth.
Through technology and innovation.
Through health and wellness.
Through stakeholders and community involvement.
Through the arts and culture.
Through inclusivity and diversity.
Transitioning to the future of Caribbean education.
Join us.
And let's blaze the trail to CAPS Virtual Conference 2021. We got this. See you there.
Caribbean Association of Principals of Secondary Schools is breaking barriers and going beyond the norm, July 26th to 31st. We invite you to be a part of this pioneering virtual conference, guaranteed to renew your commitment as administrators of excellence through the sharing of ideas in innovation and technology. The ultimate Caribbean unifying experience. CAPS Virtual Conference, July 2021. Creating opportunities to collaborate, define our future, and transition beyond the norm. Be a part of the journey.
CAPS Virtual Conference 2021, Blazing the Trail.